Hello everyone, hello Samurais. Welcome to our Samurai Lab lesson 10. Welcome back to the dojo. I think I said I would be using that word from now on, right? So anyway, uh, what are we gonna be looking at lesson 10? I think this will be hopefully not a very long lesson. I am expecting maybe around 20 minutes or so, maybe not longer than that. And we'll be looking at creating your own custom functions, right? We'll be creating your own custom functions on how to do things. So that's gonna be very, very, very cool. So let's get to it. Okay. So I have here opened the script that we've been working on this whole time. So we're gonna be creating a section called functions. Let's type here functions. And then we're gonna start to create a function. How do we create a function? And by the way, I need to maximize this. I almost made the same exact mistake as last video. But well, it happens. Yeah. So how do we create a function? Well, to create a function, we first need to give that function a name. So let's call this my first function. Assign an operator, and then we're gonna be typing the word function, and then we're gonna be doing curly braces at the end, and that's it. Then we're gonna place inside here what we want that function to do. Now functions of course can take arguments. We're gonna be looking at how you can create a function that has arguments, right? We're gonna be looking at that later. So how can we make this function work? We're going to create a very, very simple function that doesn't require any arguments and that just returns something. So we're going to use a print inside here. Then we're going to say, well, I don't want to say use hello world. It's too boring. It's alive. It's alive. Okay. Then we're gonna execute this line, and you will see that it has been loaded here as in the environment. This is functions, my first function. Now I think I haven't loaded all the libraries. I'm just gonna load them just in case. We don't need the rest. Okay. Then yeah, that's it. So we're gonna be doing it like this. My first function, function print, it's alive, and then we're gonna execute that function in the console. My first function, and then since it requires absolutely no parameters, it'll just print it's alive. Now this is not a great function. I mean, it's pretty simple, right? You might want to think like, well, let's try a little bit more complicated. How is it that I can pass down parameters? And we're also missing some other, let's say, functionality that we can do inside here when we're creating a function. So let's make this a little bit more complicated. Okay, so instead of say or printing it's alive, let's comment this out, and we're gonna be taking an x and y argument. Okay, then what we're gonna do with that is that we are gonna be saying, for example, yeah, we're just gonna print the result, print, and then we're gonna say here a paste. We're gonna be pasting inside x, and this is gonna be a multiplication function. So this y equal x y equal, and then x times y. Okay, and hopefully this will create, we're going to re-execute this so that our function is updated. And then we're going to use this function here. Let's use it in the console. My first function, we're going to do 2 and 3. And then we have it 2 times 3 equal 6. Right? And we can change this to a paste 0 if we want to eliminate the spaces. So let's re-execute this. There we go. 2 times 3 equal 6. So this is a function now that has arguments, right, x and y, and it's just returning that print. Now, you can do more than that, right? We can, for example, also return, let's create another function. Let's copy this. And let's modify this a little bit, okay? Let's not have this in here because that's a print. Let's say that we're going to store that result into a variable called z, x times y. And then what we're going to be doing is we're going to use a return. So return will tell us exactly what we want to return from inside this function, and we want to return z, which is calculated by x times y. So let's generate this function. Let's call it my second function. And then let's type it here. My second function. 2, 3. And there we go. Now we don't have a string or character type. We have actually a number, right? We have a number there, a numeric type. So we can do that. But we can do also other things with functions. Remember, all the types of codes, that everything you've learned so far, you can use inside functions. Last class we were looking at loops. What if we create a function that creates, let's say, a multiplication table that just displays that? Let's try to create that. So let's call this function multiplication table. And then we're going to be function. Let's just take one argument, a single one. Let's call it x also. And here, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using a for. Let's insert the snippet. Let's say I in 1 to x, and x is the number that we're going to insert here. It's going to be doing something, and then another for loop inside for j in 1 to x. We're going to be doing something else, and then here we're going to be doing a print with I think we can just copy this one over here, so we can reuse some of the code from before. Okay, let's create this, and then this again, let's just type it in here, multiplication table. Let's say 10. Oh, object y not found. Oh, okay, I made a mistake here. Should have put here I and j. Sorry about that. I should have been more careful when copying things around. Let's redo that. Yeah, there we go. And now we have basically a print of all those multiplication tables from 1 to 10, right? Because it's going from 1 to 10, from 1 to 10, or from 1 to x, right? In this case, x was 10. And then we have our whole printed multiplication table. You can also do different things. Let's say you can also create things into a table, but before we create something that returns a table, right, and we can save that into another variable, let's see how we can return more than one variable, right? Because here I told you that you can return things from a function, but what if you want to return more than one thing? How do you do that? Well, in case you ever wonder how you can return more than one thing, I'm gonna tell you how to do it. So let's call this let's call this what? Mean, median. And we're gonna be doing the function. We're gonna be taking here, let's say we should be providing a vector. Let's call it vector. And then inside, we're gonna be saying that mean is gonna be mean of vector we're gonna be adding na.rm equal true, because what if someone passes a vector that has an na in it, then you would get an na by default, right? So we're gonna be passing also na.rm equal true. Then we're gonna be doing also a median, hopefully, yes, like this. Vector dot rm equal true. And then finally we have two quantities here, and probably we want to return both of them. So to return both of them, we're going to be saying, hey, you're going to be returning me a vector, of course starting with c, that is going to be called that contains mean and median, which are our variables here. Hopefully this works. Okay, so I created the function. Now let's put it to use. Mean, median, and then I'm going to be passing a vector 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10, and then we obtain both the mean and the median. Now that was, I think, a little bit boring, so let's change here. It's 30, 22, and then 11, and then 44, and then 58, 66, 73, 80, 80, 93, and 109. There we go. So here our function is basically returning two things. So if you ever want to have a function that is returning more than one thing, remember you can always create a vector that returns those two things, right? So that is very useful to remember. Of course, remember that this vector, remember what is what, right? This is the mean, this is the median. So you probably have to remember that or document that somewhere. But you can do that. You can have a function that returns more than one element. Usually you might want it to just return a simple thing because that's the easiest, but just in case you were wondering, hey, how is it that I can return more than one thing from that function? Well, you can use it like this. Now another thing you can do is that you can also use functions inside functions that you created. So let's see if we can do that. We already have a my first function here that says paste 0x blah blah blah. Let's create another function here. Let's create a third one. Let's call this my third function. It's not really our third one, but at least in order it is. Let's call it my third function. It's gonna be doing a print of x and y, and then let's see what we can do here. Mm, mm, mm. Mm, mm, mm. Yeah, we're gonna be doing another print. And then we're gonna be using maybe, well, we're gonna be using the same thing. Here we're gonna use my second function, and here we're gonna be passing x and y. We should be coming from here, I believe. Hopefully that's the way it works. And then it should also be returning, I think, should be printing z only, I think. Let's see if it actually works like this. Let's see my third function. There we go. So here we use the function inside a function, right? So we created a function called my second function, and inside my third function we said like, yeah, you know, please print this, but also, by the way, use this other function called my second function. Take the same values of x and y, pass them to this second function, calculate the stuff, and then, you know, print the result. So that's basically what happened here, right? So remember, you can create those functions, and those functions that you created, you can place inside other functions. So that's very, very useful. Now, what happens if you want to, let's say, return something that is just not an integer or a character? What if you want to return some kind of tibble, right? So let's create another function that generates that multiplication table. So we're gonna be making here a second one. We're gonna be modifying this. We're gonna call it multiplication table 2. Then we're gonna be using some of our knowledge from other classes plus a little bit sprinkled in. So we're gonna be doing, let's say, number 1. This is an integer. Then number 2, which is also an integer. Then we're gonna be doing a result, something to store the result in. It's also an integer. Sure. Then after that, we're gonna be doing the loop, and we're gonna be going from 1 to x, right? And instead of printing this, let's change what we have in here inside the for loop. We're gonna be doing number 1 is gonna be basically a vector of number 1 I. And here number 2 is a vector of number 2 j. And then the third one would be the result, and the result would be result I times j. I think this should probably work. Okay, but we're still not done. Okay, after creating this, we're gonna be creating our tibble. So we're gonna say we have a tibble that is made of number 1, which is equal to number 1. Then we have number 2 equal to number 2, and then result equal to result. And I think that should probably be it. I think this should probably work. Now let's use that function. Let's put it to use. Multiplication table 2, and it expects us to give one number, let's say 10, and There we go. But let's see here. Is it working as intended? Oh yeah, it says 90 more rows. So we can only see part of it, right? So we have 10 more multiplic 9 more multiplication tables below. Now it's returning you something, but well, you probably want to store this as a data frame, right? Because it's already it's already a table, which is a type of data frame. So we can store this in something called multiplication table. Well, let's just call it tables. Tables, and then we're gonna be using the multiplication table 2, 10, and then we would have here, boom, our multiplication tables ready to go. Right, so that's another thing you can do with functions. You can return any type of data that you want. It can be an integer, it can be a text, it can be a table. Basically, the sky's the limit. You can even return other types of objects, right? You could be returning a ggplot object, or you name it. The sky's the limit. And with custom functions, you can do so many things. You can even create functions that are taking data to be piped, for example. And how do we do that actually? Let's see. Create function with pipe. Let's see if we find something. I think pipeable function maybe. Here, how to write custom. By the way, Stack Overflow is a very great example of how you can create something that well, Stack Overflow will. I recommend this site that you go there when you're having some issues, of if you don't understand something and I'm not there to explain it. Of course, you should first come to me. No, just a joke. Yeah, you should probably go to Stack Overflow if you're looking for something. There's a lot of knowledge there. Lots of people ask questions, and there's answers to those questions, to very common questions. So this is also a very good place where you can just find answers. So look, here's a guy that says how you can use something to make a pipeable function. Let's try it. Okay, let's try this guy's custom function. So I'm just gonna copy it just like that. So I must give credit to who wrote this. Akrun, thank you. And we'll see what happens. So here we have the custom function dot data x, the power substitute. Yeah, it's doing something. And then we're gonna be using a data frame that is already built in, I think, into R, which is called empty cars. So hopefully this is gonna work. Yep, see? So empty cars is a data frame that is built in, that you can use for data testing and other things. I think we will probably be using empty cars once we go into trying to visualize some data, because it has some very nice information on how we can visualize it, and I think it's going to be great for us when we go into the topic of ggplot. But in this case, I just wanted to show that you can also create functions that are pipe friendly, right? In this case, it's like this, right? You have a custom, you create the custom function or the function, then we say like, oh, you know, we're going to be passing something called data, right? And also an x, and then we're going to take the mean of that data, the power substitute x, and we're doing that stuff, and then we do it. That's a way in which you can pass things. You could have also done something like, actually, let's see if we can do something. So let's call this custom function 2, and we're going to be passing that data. And then let's say that we're gonna do the data, and this is where it gets interesting. We're gonna assign it to itself, data, pipe, mutate, and we're gonna create a new column called carb2 is equal to carb2 plus 1, and then we're gonna be return dot data. And let's see what happens. Let's just call it custom function like this. I don't think we need an argument because we already have empty cars. Custom function 2 and carb, not carb2. Oh, sorry. Here it's only carb. It's only carb. That was my mistake. Sorry. And there we go. See? So here we created a function that takes the data, then does a mutate on an existing column of that data frame, does an operation, creates a new column, and then returns that data frame again. And then when you execute that on your data frame called empty cars with our custom function 2, it'll execute exactly this. So this is also a way in which you can create functions that are pipe friendly. So very, very powerful stuff. If this I've used quite a lot, this particular method. You know, I might have already a particular data frame structure and I want to play with that data, and I always, let's say I always perform an operation that involves X, Y, and Z columns. Well, I can just create a function that takes that, does some calculation, and then returns that data itself so that I can later just use that function in a pipe when I'm working on that particular data frame. So very, very powerful stuff when it comes to creating functions. It's also very, very easy. You can create functions very easily. You see, it was not complicated at all. So I really encourage you to experiment creating your own custom functions with everything that we've learned. Everything that we've learned until this point, you can somehow include inside functions, right? So that's a topic that I like explaining to people once they made it this far, because it opens a whole new world of possibilities when you create your own custom functions. The sky's the limit, right? You can create so many things right now with the knowledge that you currently have on creating functions and on using R. I think with that, we'd basically come to the end of our, and by the way, remember to save. Remember to save the script. I think last time I forgot to tell you how to save it or to click save. So remember to save that work. So yeah, that basically wraps our lesson today. Remember, if you like these lessons, please like and subscribe. It would mean a lot to me, you know, just seeing that someone out there is actually taking my classes and making him or herself better at R. That would bring a smile to my face. So if you like my work, you like the lessons, like and subscribe, tell your friends. It really helps. With that said, I think that's all for today, Samurais. And yeah, class dismissed. I'll see you next time. And next time we'll be looking at ggplot. So we'll be visualizing our data using empty cars. So also very, very interesting package, ggplot. So see you next time, class dismissed.